So let's get started with some of the simpler stuff. I know this is on the test. This is creating levels. So let's jump into Revit. Let's just start a brand new model from scratch. So under projects, let's go new. Let's use our structural template. Let's click OK. Now, if we're going to create levels, we need to be in an elevation to do it. A level is a physical item that has a datum elevation to it that will correspond to a level in our project browser. So what I'd like to do is I want to go to my south elevation. I'm going to zoom in on south. I'm going to double click on this little hat right here. And the default is to have 2 levels. What I'd like to do is select level 2. Notice that a bunch of items turn blue. We get a 3D icon. We get a little check mark that turns the bubble on or off. And we get a lock padlock. What I'd like to do is select level 2. And instead of 10 feet, click onto where it says 10 feet. I want to make this 12 feet, then hit enter. Notice that the entire level will shift up. As you can see, there's a padlock and a little aligning line. If I click on the grip on level 2, both levels will lock and align along with each other. Also, every other view will be reflected by this movement. So for example, if I go back to my floor plan by hitting Control Tab, I zoom out and I go to my north elevation, we'll see that our levels are appended to one another. But if I uncheck 3D, that means any movement that I do here is only going to be in this view where it says 2D. So now if I move level 2 in, I hit Control Tab, and I go back to my south elevation, we'll see that that change hasn't been made. So for levels, if you only want it to show up in this view when you move it, uncheck 3D. Now to create a new level, what I'm going to do is I'm going to either select a level, right-click, and create similar. Or if I hit escape a few times, if I go to my structure tab and I go to my datum panel and I click on my level button, I can make a level there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on level. Now, in conjunction with the level command, I have my temporary draw palette. I'm going to click on my pick lines button. And for my offset, I'm going to go 12 feet. Now I'm going to hover over level 2, and I'm going to offset that up 12 feet. I have level 3. I can keep going, 4, 5, 6, however many levels I want. But you have to make sure that you hit escape a few times. Now, one more thing I want to do is create another level below level 1. So I'm going to select level 1. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to create similar. On my drop panel, I'm going to pick lines. This time I'm going to offset 6 feet. But also notice over here where it says Make Plan View. Notice in the project browser that I've made now 6 plan views. If I click on Plan View Types, we'll see that it's going to make a ceiling plan, a floor plan, and a structural plan. Generally, we don't want a ceiling plan and a structural model, or a floor plan, so we can just make structural plans. I'm going to click OK. Now on my draw panel, pick lines, offset 6 feet. I'm going to offset a level down 6 feet. I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Notice that now that it's below 0, it's going to give us a negative increment. I'm going to click on level 7, click it again, in all caps, I'm going to call it T.O. space footing. I'm going to enter. Now what happens if I rename a level, Revit wants to know if we want to rename the corresponding views along with it. And yes, we usually do want to do that. So click yes. I'm going to hit escape. Let's do the same for the top level. Let's call this level 6. Let's call it roof. Enter. Yes, we want to rename the corresponding views. Now I'm going to make one more level, but it's only going to be a foot above this. So I'm going to select roof, right click, I'm going to create similar. On my draw panel, I'm going to use my pick lines button. I'm going to offset this just 1 foot. I'm going to put it right there. I want to make sure that it's right in the way and annoying. For level 8, I'm going to select level 8, and I'm going to call it curbing. I'm going to hit enter. Yes. Now, the reason I did that is because the levels have other qualities to them. So if we hit escape, then select curbing, I can click on a little break or add elbow icon and break there. So now if I move it up, now I can move this grip over, and I can move this grip over. So now this is out of the way, and I can move this up Perfect. Now if I select this level, I can zoom out and go to the other side of it. Notice that we have the same choice down here, so I can turn on the bubble on this side as well. So if I select this level, I can turn on my bubble. Perfect. Now I'm going to select level 5. I'm going to click Edit Type. Our constraints are set to, it's going to show our project base point for our elevation base. Our symbol, that says level head circle, if I hit the drop down here, we can change the actual value of that. This is an external family that we load into our project. So if I was to say level head no bubble, hit apply, hit OK, there's no bubble. I don't really like that, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to click Edit Type. I'm going to select level head circle. But if you want, you can have a symbol at both ends by default. So click symbol at N1 default, click it on. And even for the color, if we want the color, if I click black, we can make it green. I don't recommend it. Line pattern, grid line 1/4, we can make it hidden. Click apply, click OK, hit escape. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do with levels. But remember now, if we want to go to a level, notice that it's blue. If I double click on level 1, this will bring us to level 1 in our project. If I go back to my levels, if I double click on level 4, this will bring us down to our level 4 view. So that's how you create levels. Now under structure, I want to go down to my datum panel and I want to click my grid button. I'm just going to pick a point like right about here. I'm going to come straight down to about here and I'm going to hit escape a few times. If I go down to column line 1, we'll see that it's column line 1. Very similar to level, I can select my grid. I can actually turn on the bubble on the top of it. And again, similar to the level, I can click on my add elbow. I can drag this around and put it anywhere I basically want. On the bottom, there's a 1. Up on the top, there's a 1. Let's make a few more. I'm going to select my grid line 1. I'm going to click copy. I'm going to select it. Now I'm going to move down about 25 feet. I'm going to type 25 and enter. Now if you had trouble with that, I want to undo it. Select grid line 1 again. Click copy. Click constrain. Now click multiple. Now I'm going to select my grid line. Now let's go 25 feet. And if you keep going to the right, you'll make a new grid line, 25. Let's make grid line 1 through 5, 25. And then one more, 25. Excellent. Escape a few times. Got it. Now I want to make a new horizontal grid line. So I'm going to select grid line 1. I'm going to right click. I'm going to create similar. I'm going to pick a point right here. I'm going to pick a point right about here. Revit wants to keep sequentially numbering it. It doesn't realize that we made a horizontal grid. So we have to tell it that we want this to be grid line A. So I'm going to select the 6. And I'm going to type in an A. One thing that you cannot do, if you select grid line A now, click on it and type in a 1 and hit enter, Revit's not going to let you do that. The name entered is already in use. Enter a unique name. This is important, especially if you think you're going to have 2 buildings in one model. It's very hard to do that because of the fact that you can't have 2 grid line A's, you can't have 2 level 1s. So remember that. I'm going to hit cancel. And I'm tired of turning on this bubble down here, so I'm going to select my grid line. I'm going to click on Edit Type. And my plan view symbol ends 1, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to click Apply. I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to select column line A. I'm going to copy this down 5 times, so click Copy, Base Point. Let's go 25. So 25, 25, and now 25. Try to escape a few times. Now notice when I select grid line 1, I can move it up and down and the entire column moves along with it. Now let's look a little deeper at this grid line. So I'm going to select grid line B here. I'm going to click Edit Type. Now what I want to do is my symbol will notice that we can have the same kind of thing, grid head circle, grid head no bubble. Again, this is an exterior family that we're going to load into our project. We can change this however your company standards are. center segment, instead of continuous, I'm going to go with custom. Now we can have a center segment weight. We can have a different color, a pattern. We can have different plan view symbols. If we go none, that means it's going to break it in the middle. And segment length is 6 feet. We'll see how that works. I'm going to click apply. I'm going to click OK. Now if I select this, I click on one of these grips, I drag that grip back, I click off of it, notice that I can gap that center line segment. One other thing about grid lines, which is really cool, is if I go to my south elevation, we'll see how grid lines are showing up. But I'm going to create a new level. I'm going to select level 2. I'm going to right click and create similar. In my drop panel, I'm going to click on pick lines, and I'm going to offset that 25 feet. I'm going to go up 25 feet. Notice that it's above our grids. I'm going to go to level 3 by zooming in on it and double clicking on the datum. Notice that we cannot see our grid lines. This is because those didn't go up to level 3. Revit is very literal. So I'm going to go back to my south elevation. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to grab my grid line 5, and I'm going to drag it up. So not only do we see grid lines in the plan, but we also see grid lines in elevation. If I go down to level 3, now we'll see these grid lines. If I go to my west elevation, I would need to do the same thing. So think about it. Revit's a 3D program. Even the 2D items that we're putting in have 3D effects on everything. Now if I go back down to level 3, all of my grid lines are here. One other thing we can do, if I select one of my grid lines, notice that we can propagate extents. So basically, if I cut this grid line up, or if I make it weird, I can propagate extents, and I can go through other plan views that it might not be showing up in. I'm going to cancel here. One more thing. I'm going to go to my structure tab, and I'm going to click column. I'm just going to zoom in here, and for my column, I'm going to go with my height is unconnected. I'm going to put my column right here. I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that column. Notice that the column location mark is set for B2. So we know that B2 is our column grid intersection. So Revit understands not only the column in plan and elevation, but it understands what these intersections mean too. And also if I select the column, it rotates with our grid. So if I select my grid line and rotate it, my column's going to rotate along with it. You hit escape a few times. That's pretty much grids in a nutshell. I want to go down to level 1 structural plan. I'd like to go to the Insert tab. Now there's 2 ways to bring in AutoCAD. You can link CAD or you can import CAD. I try to avoid linking CAD if I can. The only time you would link a CAD file is if it's this situation where you're linking in a floor plan that has a chance of changing throughout the life of the project. So let's do link first. So I'm going to click on link CAD. I'm going to browse around keeping my exercise files. I'm going to find my architectural floor plan level 1 drawing, but don't open it yet. Now, given the nature of what this is AutoCAD, right? So we got to deal with levels as separate files. So we can deal with that in Revit. Current view only is what we want to click. So the architectural floor plan level 1 will only be on the current view. Now for the colors, we can invert, preserve, or do black and white. I'm going to do black and white. For layers level, instead of all, we can do visible, or we can specify as we open the model. It'll give us a list of layers, and we can bring those in that we want. I usually do visible because I'm never sure what layers are what. So let's go visible. Import units. Generally, you're going to auto-detect unless you bring it in and it's to the wrong scale. Then we'll need to go back and figure out why. Positioning. Auto origin to origin generally is what we want to use. If that doesn't work, we'll have to use center to center. We won't get into shared coordinates in this. Now let's click open. And it's brought it in. Now what we can do with this in here, if I select it, I have my typical draw order commands bring the front, some the back. I can delete certain layers, or I can query some items. So what I'd like to do is click on query. So click query. So for example, if I want to know what this is here, I'm going to click it. And it's going to tell me that that layer is S grid. Makes sense? I can delete that layer or hide it in view. Now, if I delete it, it gets rid of it. Everything that's on that layer. So remember that. I'm going to click OK. And of course, anything else, a wall, and it goes on right down the line, a glazing identity, text. So everything that we would typically see in AutoCAD, we've got here. A couple other things about this, if you type in VG, that's called visibility graphics. And if we go to imported categories, notice that we have architectural floor plan. If we click on halftone and click apply, it's going to halftone the entire underlay. If we drill into architectural floor plan, here's all those silly AutoCAD layers that we get to deal with. We can turn them on or off here as well. I'm going to click OK. If we select the link, generally it's going to be pinned. So notice that there's a little pin icon. This is good. If it's not pinned, you would want to click pin here. Also, we can have it be in the background or the foreground. That's more or less bring to front and send to back. What I'd also like to do is scroll down on our project browser, and I want to right click now on Revit links. Let's go manage links. Now if we go CAD formats, we'll see that we have an architectural floor plan that's loaded into our model, which means that if we're going to send our model to someone, we got to send this with them. And it's saved to my exercise files, and the path type is relative. We can reload from, reload it, unload it. We can add another one or remove it completely. So click OK. I'm going to hit escape a couple times. Now I'd like to bring in a typical detail. So to do that, I'm going to go to this View tab. I'm going to go to Drafting Views. What a drafting view is this is just going to be a blank sheet of paper that has nothing to do with anything that we've ever modeled. For the name, I'm going to call it Foundation Detail. Now the problem is the scale. You need to know what the scale is of the detail that you're bringing in. I think it's 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. We'll find out. So I'm going to click OK. Blank sheet of paper. Now if I go Insert, this time I want to import CAD. Now I'm going to grab this typical wall bearing detail right here. Now current view only is grayed out because it can only go into the current view because this is a drafting view. I'm going to keep black and white for my colors. I'm going to bring in the visible layers or levels. All of the text seemed to work before. I'm going to click lines that are slightly off axis, which never really happens. And my positioning is auto origin to origin. I'm going to click open. If it doesn't show right up, we're going to type ZA, and here it is. If we zoom in on it, we've got it's pinned down. And what I usually will do is take a dimension just to make sure. So if I click on measure between 2 points, I'm going to click here, I'm going to click here, you came at 10 feet. So that means it's scaled correctly, which is good. Now again, I can select this. What I can do here, if I explode it, what's going to happen is I have 2 methods of exploding. I can do a partial explode or a full explode. The difference is a partial explode, for example, this is a block. If I do a partial explode, it explodes everything down to the first level of blocks. Then we can explode the blocks, then we can go down from there. If we do a full explode, that nukes the entire thing. So if I select this detail, hit my explode drop down and do a full explode, that explodes the entire thing. Now it's just pieces of text, and it's just circles and text. That's all it is. In our project browser, we now can go to Drafting Views, Foundation Detail. So now this shows up in our project browser, just like it was part of the model. Congratulations, you have a Revit model with 2D AutoCAD elements in it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Insert tab. I'm going to click on Link Revit. I'm going to select Architectural. I'm going to make sure Auto Origin to Origin is our position, and I'm going to click Open. It doesn't look much like a floor plan, but what I want to do is look at our discipline. So if we come over to our discipline, let's set our discipline instead of structural, let's go coordination and click apply. A few things aren't showing up. So if we type VG for visibility graphics, if we go down to curtain panels, curtain systems, curtain wall mullions, and click apply, it's going to turn on our curtain walls for us. If I click OK, we can see a little bit more of our building. What I'd like to do now, though, is select our underlay and click the pin button. So we're going to pin it down just like that. Now I want to click on Edit Type. I don't care much about room bounding because we're in a structural model. Reference type is overlay, but our phase mapping, let's go ahead and click on Edit right here. Now, if we have additional phases in the architectural model that we don't have in our structural model, we need to deal with that here in our phase mapping. We need to either create new phases or map our phases to the phases in the architectural model. I'm just going to click OK here. I'm going to click OK here. Now what I'd like to do is go to a 3D view. And let's change our discipline here from structural to coordination. Click apply. Now let's change our visual style to hidden line. You can see that we have this in here. I can almost bet that roofs and curtains are turned off here as well, but that's okay. We don't need to turn those back on. But what I do want to do is create some levels. So let's go back down to level 1, structural plan. And I want to double click on the south elevation. So double click on south elevation. We need to make some levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select level 2. I'm going to drag this out to about here. I want to say we have a level 1 and a level 2. We also have analytical models for both of those, but we'll learn what that is later. But for level 2, I want to be to the top of steel or bottom of slab. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type AL for line. I'm going to select the bottom of the slab, and I'm going to select my level. Don't lock it. We're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to hit escape a few times. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on level 2. I'm going to create similar. And on my pick lines button, I'm going to pick the bottom of the slab, going all the way up, and the bottom of the roof. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to select level 5 here. Notice that our levels are joined together, just like we learned earlier. So I'm going to grab my level 5. I'm going to pick it. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to drag it out till it locks itself to level 2. I'm going to do the same for my top level. I'm going to drag this out. For my top level, I'm going to select it. Make sure that my bubble is turned on. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to zoom into level 6. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to rename it to roof. All caps. Hit enter. Yes, rename corresponding views. Let's create one more down here called top of footing. I'm going to right click on level 1. I'm going to create similar. On my drop panel, I'm going to use my pick lines button. I'm going to pick top of footing. I'm going to drag it out. And I'm going to turn on my bubble. And my level 7, I'm going to call it PO footing. P period O period space footing. I'm going to hit enter. Yes, we rename corresponding views. Okay, perfect. Now, what I want to do is if the architect moves one of their levels, I want my level to move with it. But as you notice, we have an underlay here. What we can do is if we don't want to see this level, any item in an architectural underlay, you can hover over it, hit your tab key, select it, right-click, hide in view elements, and it gets rid of it for you. That's a good trick. So if I go to corridor parapet, hover over, tab, pick, right-click, hide in view elements. Excellent. Now, I want to monitor these levels. So if the architect moves a level, we'll get a coordination error, which is fine. So I'm going to go to collaborate. I'm going to go to copy monitor. Now I want to select the link. So I'm going to go select link. Now I'm going to select the architectural underlay. Now what I want to do is monitor. Now I'm going to come down to the bottom, top of footing to top of footing, level 1 to level 1. Now I want to go level 2 to level 2. Revit knows which one to pick first, and once you've picked it, you'll see a little heartbeat icon indicating that it's being monitored. Level 3 to level 3, 4 to 4, 5 to 5, and then roof to roof. Zoom out. I'm going to click Finish. Now I'm monitored. Now what I'd like to do is go back down to level 2. A couple things to look at. I'm going to type VG for Visibility Graphics. Now, notice that we have a Revit Links tab. If we go to Revit Links, notice that we can halftone the underlay if we want. Under Display Settings, we can click by Host View, and we can go Custom. So now if we go to Model Categories, and for our model categories, we click Custom, we can turn on or off any items in the architectural underlay that we see fit without affecting our view. For example, if we don't want to see column grids that they have in there, we can scroll down to grids by going to Annotation Categories, going Custom, typing grids, and just turning them off. This will turn the grids off in this view, but it won't turn the grids off in our overall view. So I'm going to click Apply, click OK, click Apply, click OK. Now notice that it's half-toned. One more thing, if we scroll down on the project browser, drill into Revit Links, notice that we have an architectural link in here. If we right-click on Revit Links and go Manage Links, we see now that we're loaded, it's an overlay, saved path, and it's relative. If we right-click on Architectural, we can reload from, we can open it, but we have to unload it. And we can go to the properties of the link, and this brings us back to our reference type. So that's how you link architectural models. Let's grab our visibility model, and let's click Open. What I'd like to do is go down to level 3. Let's change the discipline. Instead of structural, let's go to coordination and click Apply. We see part of our building, but notice that it's not halftone. If we go down to level 2, notice that is halftone. Why is that? Well, if we go to level 3, if we zoom out, and if we type VG, this is Visibility Graphics. We've done this before, but notice that it's Visibility Graphic Overrides for Structural Plan Level 3. So it pertains specifically to this view. Any changes we make here, any item we turn on or off, is only reflected in the view we're working in. This is good or bad. We can have as many views as we want that look any way we want. That's the good thing. But the bad thing is we can have as many views as we want that look any way they want. So there's a few things to go over here. One thing is the override for Revit Links. So if we go to Revit Links, and for our display settings, if we click by Host View, notice how the architectural model looks. Our detail level is set for coarse. Generally, I like to show the architectural detail level at fine, but I like to show the overall detail level as coarse on a plan view because I like my beams to show up as one line. So I'm just going to go custom, and my detail level, instead of by host view, I'm just going to go fine, click apply, and this detail level will turn to fine, while this detail level will stay as coarse. Of course, if we go to model categories, we can do the same thing. Model categories, instead of by host view, we'll go custom. And now we can turn on certain items that are in it. Click apply. Our curtain panels get turned on. If we draw a curtain panel outside of this link, it won't show up. Let's click OK. Let's click apply. Let's click OK. Now a couple things. For example, I'm not sure what this is. If I don't want to see it, I'm going to hover over this wall, hit Tab, select it. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to hide in view, and I'm going to go Elements. It's gone. So we can reach into our model, and we can hide items, and we can control how it looks. I can also select the item itself. I can right-click, override graphics and view by category, and we can halftone it here. And if I hit Apply, and projection lines, I can give them a weight of 1, and I can hit apply. It makes my hair heavier, but I can hit OK. Hit escape a couple times. And here it is. So we can override those graphics in view. Also, if I go down level 2, what I can do also is overall control the visibility. So if I go to my Manage tab, and if I go to Additional Settings, And if I go to halftone underlay, what does it mean to halftone something? Well, we go to halftone underlay, and if we change our light here to 1, and if we bump up our brightness to, say, like 80, hit OK, it's still going to be halftone, but it's going to darken it up. What we just did there, this controls the entire model. We can come into here, and if I hover over one of these lines and hit Tab, select it, right-click, hide in view, I can say category, and hide every line in view in that link. So that's how you control visibility in underlaid elements. In Chapter 1, I want to click on Architectural. Now I click on Open. I'm going to go to the Self-Elevation. So in the project browser, let's scroll down to Elevations. There's a lot of them. Let's go to Self. Now I'm going to come over here to Level 2. 18 feet's too high, so the architect thinks. Instead of 18 feet, I'm going to go 16 feet. I'm going to hit Enter. I'm probably going to blow something up here, but that's okay. Oh yeah, the stairs didn't like that. That's all right. Close out of the warning, hit Escape a few times, and save the model. Close Hidden Views, and then close out. So what I'd like to do is go to my Self-Elevation. And there's kind of a problem. Our level is above their level. That's okay. So we can't really tell what happened until we select the architectural model, and then we click on Coordination Review. So click Coordination Review. Now we can see in Coordination Review exactly what happened. So if we go to Levels, Maintain Position, level moved by 2 feet. Now if we drill into this, select Architectural Level, now what's going to happen is if you look down here, you'll see that the architectural model is turned blue, and you go to our level, we'll see that our level has turned blue. So what we can do now is we can take an action on it. We can postpone it, reject it, accept it, or move it. And sometimes these are tough actions to take. So what I want to do is move level 2. Makes sense. But I want to add a comment. I'm going to say, I didn't like doing this exclamation point. And I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to click Apply, and it's going to move my level to the same relative distance that it was before. So keep in mind that that's going to happen. Now what I can do is I can create a report. So I'm going to create a report. I'm going to put it right in Chapter 1 underneath the visibility. I'm going to click on Save. I'm going to click Apply and OK. I'm going to hit Escape a few times. And that's a coordination alert. The reason I really bring this up is because of the fact that whenever you open a Revit model and you get coordination alert, there's nothing wrong with Revit. Your BIM manager set it up that way on purpose. Go to Coordination Review and see what they moved. And notice we have level 1 up to roof. When we put columns in, Revit likes to look downward. Let's go down to level 1 structural plan. Let's go to the structure tab. And remember, if you go to the architecture tab and click column, that's a different column than if you go to the structure tab. Make sure you're clicking structural column. So let's click on column. And instead of this W shape, let's click our drop down here. And I'll grab a concrete rectangular column. I'll go 12 by 18. Let's make a new type of column. So I'm going to click on Edit Type. I'm going to duplicate. Now I'm going to go 18 by 18. I'm going to click OK. For my dimensions on B, I'm going to type 18 inches, and H will remain 1'6". I'm going to click OK. Now that I'm on level 1, what I'd like to do is my depth, instead of unconnected, let's go to top of footing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this column line right here. It pops it in. I'm going to hit Escape. Now we'll see that the structural column is set for column marker A1. It's an 18 by 18 structural column. Now, if I'm going to select this, notice we have other properties. So now I have base level as top of footing. For my top level, let's click the drop down. Let's go up to our roof level. Let's click Apply. Notice now our hatch pattern shows up because we're kind of cutting a section through it. I'm going to select this column. I'm going to right click. I'm going to create similar. And look at what else you can do. If we click at grids, go ahead and click at grids. I can pick a window around my entire grid system, putting all the columns in one shot. So now I'm going to click on Finish. And just to make sure my columns are all going to the right spot, they're not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of my columns. I'm going to right click, select all instances in the entire project. On my base level, top of footing, my top level, I'm going to click my drop down, and all of these are going to go up to my roof level. Click Apply, go to a 3D view, and here they are. Now I'm going to go back down to level 1. I want to put in some structural steel columns, so I'm going to select one of these columns. I'm going to right click, I'm going to select all instances in the entire project. I'm just going to hit Delete. Now under Structure, let's click Column. Now I'm going to click Load Family. I'm going to scroll down, not to columns, but to structural columns. Make sure you go down to structural columns. Instead, I'm going to go with steel. I'm going to grab HSS Hollow Structural section, and I'm going to click Open. Now we get a huge dialog of every HSS type that's in here. So I want to go down. I'm going to grab 8x8 by 5/8 right here. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to let my depth go to the top of footing again. I'm going to put one right here. Another thing we could do is if we were down to top of footing level, we'll go Structure Column. Now for depth, instead of depth, we'll go Height. And the height is going to be up to the roof. Now we can go Add Grids and pick a window around everything and click Finish. And the columns are all, except for this one, up to our roof level. So I'm going to select this first one we put in. Instead of level 1, I'm going to go to Roof, click Apply. You go to a 3D view. These are all in up to our roof level. One thing I'd like to do is go to my south elevation. Just make sure everything looks good. Zoom in on the top of footing. And we're good. That's how you put structural and steel columns into a model. The first thing I want to do is adjust my columns. So I'm going to select one of my columns. I'm going to right click. I'm going to select all instances in the entire project. For my base level, I only want it to go to level 1, and I'm going to hit Apply. Now I'd like to go down to level 1 structural plan. I want to add a foundation wall that goes from level 1 to top of footing. So on the Structure tab, I'm going to click my Wall button. And for Basic Wall Generic 8-inch, I'm going to click my drop down here. I'm going to find the wall that I want. What I want is foundation 12-inch concrete. Now I'm going to click on Edit Type. I'm going to duplicate this. And I want my foundation wall to be 1 foot dash 6 inches. I'm going to get rid of the number 2. I'm going to click OK. Now, for my value, I'm going to click Edit next to Structure. I want to keep the concrete cast in place, but my thickness wants to be 1 foot 6. I can take a preview of my wall. This is what our wall looks like in plan. If I view this section, here's what our wall looks like in section. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. Now, with my wall, I get a little more choices than I did with my column. So my base constraint is going to be top of footing. My base offset will be 0. My top constraint will be up to level 1, and my top offset will be 0. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to draw a perimeter. So I'm going to pick this column here. I'm going to come up and I'm going to pick this column here. I'm going to keep going, pick this column here. I'm going to come down and pick this column here. I'm going to simply come over and pick this column here. Now, if I go down to my top of footing level, we'll see our wall is in, and our hatch pattern has been applied. Go to a 3D view. I'll see that our wall is placed underneath our columns. Let's set our detail level to 5. Let's set our visual style to realistic. Now I'm going to zoom in on our wall and check it out. So what makes the concrete concrete? Let's check the wall out by selecting it. Now, what's going to happen is we have two different types of properties for a wall. If I was to change any of these properties here, it will only affect the single wall that I have modeled. For example, if I want my top offset to be 2 feet, hit apply, only this wall will have a top offset of 2 feet. Notice the columns won't react to that. We have to give an offset to the bottom of the columns as well. So for my top offset, I'm going to type in 0, hit apply. Now what I'd like to do is click on edit type. Here's our wall silhouetted. Now under structure, I want to go ahead and click on edit. And what we see here is how our wall is built up. So under structure, I want to click into where it says concrete cast in place. And I want to click on the builder button right here. Notice now that we go to our material browser. In our material browser, under cut pattern, where it says concrete, go ahead and click on that. Now this brings in our fill patterns. These patterns will read in a .pat file, which is exactly the same as what you get in AutoCAD. So if you find that you're lacking fill patterns in Revit, you can go get the same fill patterns that you had in AutoCAD. I'm going to click cancel here. We can apply a surface pattern as well. Now if we go to appearance, here's concrete cast in place gray. So if I click concrete cast in place, this will bring us to our material dialog. I'm just going to click cancel here. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. If I hit escape a few times, there we go. That's how you add walls.